So it is PROG27545, Web Application Design and Implementation. My name is Alex Tetervak. I will be teaching this section. Actually, I'm teaching both sections. This course relies on previous knowledge of general programming knowledge, like in C# course. Knowledge from Android course does help, but it's not necessary. This course is in several languages, several programming languages. Not necessarily programming, some web languages and programming languages. This course is, since it's about web application design and implementation, obviously it's related to web applications. So I will assume some knowledge of HTML, maybe not very deep and advanced, but some understanding how HTML works. I will also assume some understanding how CSS works. You don't need to know all the features of CSS, but basic principles, how CSS works, is required. Basic understanding of CSS. Basic understanding of JavaScript is also required, but maybe it's hard to require knowledge, advanced knowledge of JavaScript because it's always changing, but some understanding of JavaScript is also required, like basic features of it. And I assume that you are familiar with C# course and C# and obviously some of Kotlin. Although knowledge of C# is more useful than Kotlin in this course. Web applications typically consist of some front end and back end, right? Front end could be as simple as just HTML and just HTML, right? But usually we have more complicated front ends than just HTML. We have HTML, CSS, and even JavaScript in it. Backend can be done very different with different tools, but in this particular course we do it with Java. It is not my choice, but it is one of the good choices, so why not? It is one of the good choices, and it is also related to your program itself. Not in particular to this course, but into the program. Because Java, it is one of the common languages around. It is maybe it's not the first common language, because first common language is always JavaScript, because everything on web and everything is using JavaScript now. So definitely Java is not first language now, but it is one of the probably first three for sure. And it is the only course in Java in your program. For this reason, we cannot switch backend to anything else because of the Java. You need to have some Java language knowledge when you graduate. So for this reason, backend is in Java. Plus, that is also a popular choice. It's one of the popular choices. Maybe not the most popular, but definitely one of the popular choices. The other popular choice, it is using Node.js for backend. I would say probably Node.js is more popular, or maybe it's about the same as Java. And there is also C# choice. Some Python choice, so it can grow. It can grow. But again, Java maybe it's not the first for backend, but it's definitely within the first three. For the front end, our first programs will just use HTML for front end, and HTML pages are generated on the back end and sent as a test. Of course, HTML with CSS. CSS is not generated. CSS will be just provided as a test, but HTML will be generated. This is how our first program will work, just because for for sake of learning how to program backend. And later we will switch for more advanced front-end with JavaScript in it, and eventually TypeScript. You know that TypeScript, it is kind of subversion of it. It is compiled into JavaScript. It is designed for better organization of the code than in JavaScript. So we will have some JavaScript examples and TypeScript eventually for the front end. So this is overview of the stuff what we're going to do. As I already mentioned that it is the only course in Java, so I'm not assuming that you know Java, but some programming familiar with C# is required. So today I will have quick overview of features of Java without actually teaching language, and in the next lesson we will just play with the language itself, with classes, with some testing, unit testing. We already played with unit testing in Android course as kind of optional level, because it was close to the end of the course and it was some lab. That lab was about unit testing of Android apps. And I said that you will revisit unit testing anyway in your following course in Android and in your following course in Java, this one. So you will revisit it. So we will play with it in the next lesson with actual programming in Java. But today I will have just overview of features of Java, and we will need to install software. Software installation will take a while. So I will assume that it will probably take up to 1 hour, depending on your computers. But first, let's do overview of the course, then overview of the Java, quick overview of the Java language, and after this, I will leave you to install stuff, and it will probably take maybe half an hour, maybe 1 hour, depending on the speed. Plus, you need to register software. This will also take a while, because you register, you will receive email, automatically generated email from their website, and eventually it works. You need to provide login and password, and it will work. So this is the plan for today. Maybe we will finish earlier a little bit, but again, it really depends on how long it takes for you to install the software. It depends on your computer speed, depends on how fast you can do it. So after first introduction, I will create chat room, like in Android courses. I will create chat room, and I will close virtual classroom, and I will be in the chat room till the end of the course while you do installation. I don't plan to do any programming today. So programming will be in the next lesson. Actually, learning of the language itself will be in the next lesson. Java language itself will be in the next lesson. As already mentioned, that previous knowledge of C# helps a lot, and Kotlin also helps a lot, but Java is closer to C# than to Kotlin. C# is kind of based on merge of two ideas. One it is from Java, one it is from C++. So Microsoft came with something else. Luckily for learners, Java is quite small language. It has less features than C# and definitely less features than Kotlin. So Java is a lot faster to learn because it has less features. Unfortunately, just because it has less features, we have to type a lot. Program is, on average, is bigger because it is very verbal language. It has less features, so you have to type more. Okay, so let's talk about start with. First, let's talk about software installation. Again, as in Android course, it is important to install exactly the same stuff, exactly the same way, because it will save a lot of time in class. Because if you try to do some unique installation, you may end up with unique issues. And we don't want unique issues because I don't know how to resolve something unique that happens only on your computer. So, and programs will be graded on the same kind of installation. So if, I assume that you do the same. So if program does not work on my installation, which is assumed as yours, it will be graded as it doesn't work at general. Otherwise, it's impossible to manage because I cannot have a lot of different installations at the same time to test it in different ways. Chrome browser. Since it's a web development course, browsers are slightly different. They're getting better and better in terms of compatibility, but they're still slightly different. So for this reason, it is better to stick to the same browser on my using the same browser for grading purpose. So I will see exactly the same stuff on my computer, the same result on my computer as you see on your computer. You are highly encouraged to test your software using different browsers, but I will use Chrome, latest version, to grade your software, so make sure that it behaves correctly on Chrome browser. I assume that it's already installed, so you don't have to install, but in case if it's not, please install it. I will use Chrome to grade your work. Git installation. Since you just finished Android course, you don't need to reinstall or even upgrade Git because Git doesn't change much. You can keep Git as it is, as it was installed in Android course. If you took Android course before, where Git was not required or it was old installation, so if it is old installation, just uninstall it and install new one. Using Git is required in all assignments in this course. Just go through default installation. At some point, it will ask you what editor to use. It's not important which one to choose because we will use a GUI similar to Android Studio. We'll use another GUI. So all these changes will go through Git, through that GUI. So we will start this course using a specific GUI, and after this we will see. Okay. So install Git. And after installing Git, do configuration using Git BA shell that comes with installation of Git. So after Git is installed, you can open Git and select Git BA shell and type these things. Obviously, it's your name, not my name. And this is your email. It's important to use your name as closely matching to what I see in Classroom. And please use Sheridan email. If it is configured with different email, just retype this line, it will overwrite it and it will change it. And there is a reason for using your name and your email, because if it looks unrecognizable, it may create questions like if it's actually done by you or by somebody else. And obviously it shouldn't be the name of another student, for obvious reasons, right? So you use your Sheridan email in your name, and it will save all those commits into Git, so you have a version control, and it's set it up. And JDK installation. And this is super, super important. So please, and it's not even please, it's required, install Java 11. Currently it is 11.0.13. And I'm not making this up. It's not kind of... why it's important to have Java 11. The reason is that for specific software for backend, recommended Java, it is either 1.8 or 11. No, Java 8, you know, 1.8 is 8. This is, they changed numbering system. It is either 8 or 11, and nothing else. Because if you use something else, you may have some issues. Certainly, current version is not 16, it's 17. Certainly, 16 is causing problems. Certainly, it is verified it is. So, 17 perhaps also. But I don't want to try, I don't want to mess with it. So since for specific back-end software library that we're going to use, we're going to use Spring framework. Recommended Java, it's either 1.8 or 11. So I'm sticking to 11. And click on download link. It will take you to Oracle. Click on this, but it may force you to create account or login or something like that. If it asks you to create account or login, just create it. It is free. You just register. And eventually download the latest of 11. This is the installer, and run installation. You need to install Java before installing GUI, because this way it will pick the latest. Do it and install it. Let's close it. Okay. So again, I really highly emphasize install JDK latest of 11. It is 11.013. Otherwise, you will have problems. And do this default installation before installing IDEA Ultimate. IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate will be used in some other course running at the same time. I think it is Bobansky course. He is using IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate for a course called web-based application development or something like that. App development or web mobile development, something like this. A question in the chat room: should we uninstall 17? No, keep it. It's not a big deal, keep it. So for in Bobansky course, you may use 17 or whatever. Keep it, it will not cause conflicts. But when you compile, make sure you select compile option with 11. This is key point. Compile it with 11. So IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate. It is not free, but it is free for students. So this is download link, and this is registration link. In order to activate it, you need to register there and create account. It is free for students. And you have to use Sheridan email to verify it automatically that you're a student. It will give you license for 1 year, but you can renew it as long as you have Sheridan account. So it's not an issue in renewing. So again, I assume that Bobansky will keep using it in his course, Mobile Web App Development, because this is what he used it last year. But if he is choosing another software, fine, you have it for this course. So there are several reasons why I choose this software. First, it is very advanced software, and it's good to learn in case you encountered it later, and so you already know how to learn it. you know what it is. It is the first one. It is one of the best around. Perhaps it is the best around. It is easy to learn for you because it is very close to Android Studio. Because both products, IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate and Android Studio, are based on the same software. They are based on IntelliJ IDEA free version. IntelliJ IDEA, I believe it is Community Edition or something like that. But do not install IntelliJ IDEA Community Edition because it doesn't contain anything related to web. But in this course, we need to have stuff related to web. So when you click a download link, website link, it will take you to IntelliJ IDEA. When you click download, it has two versions, Ultimate and Community. Do not do this one because it doesn't contain anything related to web. But this course is about web application development. So in this sense, it is useless. Do not take this one. Take this one. It says free trial for 30 days if you don't register. But if you register as a student, you have it for 1 year and you keep renewing it as long as you have student email. You see, it doesn't have HTML, SQL, it doesn't have web support, this one. And another reason why I'm choosing it, by the way, there is a Mac version. You can use Mac version in this course. It will be just fine. Installation is different. And I'm not providing installation. Definitely installation instruction. Definitely Git installation is different in Mac. But probably if you are using Mac, you already figure it out in Android course how to install Git. So, Android Studio is based on this. Essentially, Android Studio, it is community edition of IntelliJ IDEA, plus a lot of plugins written by Google. So this is why if we use this, also based on community edition, everything what we see on the screen, it is so close to Android Studio, so it is easy to use for us. So it is another reason why I'm choosing choosing IntelliJ IDEA, because you're already familiar with Android Studio, and this is very, very similar to it, because they are both based on the same product on this. There is a back button here. No. So annoying a little bit. And download it, install it, and eventually it wants you to activate free educational licenses. Apply now. When you go through that, you need to, it will create account. But when you create account, please use your Sheridan email. This way it can verify it by sending email to you. So you need to click on something there when you receive email, so it will know that it's a real one. And you will use your login and password create for the account to activate software. This is how it works. This one, and one more reason why I choose it, because it is one of the best, and perhaps the best. Keep it current with updating, but don't run updates, obviously, when you're about to finish your assignment, or you're during exam, or immediately before exam. Just apply common sense when you run upgrades. So there isn't textbook about backend, the way how we will do backend using Spring Framework. Written by Cosmina. She's a pro in this area. She wrote several books. And this is the most recent one, released in January 2021. And she wrote that it is the most intelligent Java IDE, in her opinion. But she's pro, so let's believe her. IntelliJ IDEA offers outstanding framework-specific coding assistance in productivity boosting features for Java EE and Spring. So we're using Spring. You also good support for Gradle. We will not use Gradle right now. We may eventually do, but we will start with something simpler than Gradle. You're already familiar with Gradle, right? But we will not use it immediately. We will use it later. So you can focus on learning Spring Framework and not how to fight with IDE. Because if you choose to use Eclipse, technically it's possible. If we use Eclipse, we will have to install additional stuff manually, plus do manual configuration, plus when we run software, not everything is, when we run the program, not everything is trivial. So although using Eclipse is also possible, it is definitely a lot more complicated in terms of installation, configuration, and running the app. So this is why it's not in the course. Eventually, if you, after you learn how to do it easy way, you can learn how to do it harder way using Eclipse if you want to. But I'm not going to use Eclipse in this course. So this, and zip installation. 7-zip is not required. It's explicitly not required. It is just something nice. If you want to use some other zip program or Windows itself, to zip and unzip, it's fine. You don't have to use 7-zip if you don't want to. Obviously, I cannot provide instructions for the software that you are using because it could be something else. Explicitly, do not use rar. You can use WinRAR to create .zip, fine, but don't use WinRAR to create .rar. There is a reason for it. It's not because I don't like it. There is a reason for it. Because when I create, I try to save time. So I have Python script that is picking everything downloaded at once from Slate, and it is sorting your apps into folders. It is unzipping folders, renaming folders, kind of tedious work. So it is actually saving me for sure more than 2 hours on each homework assignment because of automatization. Just because it is a Python script, it can use only command line. It cannot use GUI because it's Python script, right? WinRAR comes with command line utility provided by them, by whatever, the same company. Unfortunately, that command line utility doesn't work right. It doesn't always open WinRAR correctly. It's a bug. So sometimes when it is opening WinRAR file as .rar, it ends up with empty folder. But when you open it with GUI, it's not empty. For this reason, I don't want to deal with this mess. So I will configure Dropbox in such a way that it will not take .rar. It will take only .zip. So I will impose restriction on Dropboxes, so you cannot upload .rar. If you try, it will tell you that strong file type. It is to spend time more productively. So I can spend time on preparing lessons instead of doing tedious work like unzipping every assignment separately in separate folders. It is extremely tedious because it's not just unzipping, it's also renaming. It comes in zip inside of zip. It's It's not nice. And Python script helps a lot. So this is about installation. So for today, please absolutely finish installation, because we will start coding in the next lesson. I will go through examples in the next lesson. So finish installation for today. And then, it is the second lesson for me today. I had another course finishing exactly at 2 o'clock. So this is why it's L. Okay? So, next, this is software installation. Let's talk about Java language itself as overview of features in the language. It says review, but it's not really review, it's overview, because review would be if you already saw it. So it is extremely close to C# in terms of feature, in terms of that it is object-oriented, it is can be used distributedly, reliable, secure, good performance, dynamic language. Syntax is, both languages are close in syntax to C and C++. You're already familiar with C and C++. If, else, class, static works exactly the same, comments are the same, multiplication, division, minus, plus, both compile into bytecode, intermediate language, run into inside of virtual machine. Unlike C and C#, you don't have to care about garbage collection, because they both use garbage collectors, like Kotlin as well, right? So automatic memory management, a lot simpler than C++, you know, where you cannot have it unless you use, what is called, smart pointers in C++. Smart pointers. Both provide similar limited support for multiple inheritance using interfaces. Like in Kotlin, you can use multiple inheritance only from one class and any number of interfaces at the same time. You cannot use two classes. You can use one class and any number of interfaces. Or any number of interfaces without class. Although they are very similar, there are still different languages. So you cannot just type C# code and hope that it will work in Java. It won't, because it's a different language. I think this is duplicated. Yeah. Unfortunately, I will fix it. So major differences from C#. As I already mentioned, Java has less features than C#. So it's easier to learn. But as a side effect, just because it has less features, you have to type more. Plus, it has more restrictions. In Kotlin, when you learn Kotlin, we learn that we can type code outside of class. How it is handled by the system, by Kotlin compiler. When you type code outside of class as a function or some assignments, it will be wrapped into Java class automatically. This is why we can use Kotlin code on Java machine. And class generated from Kotlin code outside of classes will be related to name of the file. So it will be some underscore KT as the name of the class generated from the Kotlin code outside of class. First, a difference between Kotlin and Java, you cannot have code outside of a class. any code must be inside of a class. It's kind of strange, but this is how it is it's specific to Java. You cannot type code outside of a class. Another very specific feature for Java, name of the file must be related to name of the public class inside of the file. And because of that, you can have only one public class in a file. So you cannot have two public classes inside of the file. If you have one public, the other should be private. Others should be private. So this is very specific feature of Java. You cannot have code outside of class. You should have only one public class per file, and name of the file must be exactly the same name of that public class in the file. You can have private there? Yeah, you can. Okay, so you are familiar with properties from Kotlin course and from C# course. So there is no language support for properties in Java. So what properties? Properties in Java, it's an abstract concept. It's not language concept. If you create some private variable setter and getter, it is property. Because property in Java is not supported in the language itself, like it is supported in C#, how it is supported in Kotlin and in JavaScript. So those languages, as you know, JavaScript, C# and Kotlin, they have specific language feature, call it property. Essentially, it's some property. It is variable, internal variable, right? Private variable, and setters and getters. In Kotlin, it's automatically generated. If you don't provide setters and getters, it's automatically generated. If you provide, it will override it. And the same idea is in close idea is in JavaScript and C#. But in Java, there is no language support, so property, it is just private variable with setter and getter. And if you want to use that setter and getter with other software consistently, like libraries, naming must be conventional. So for this setter and getter, should be camel case, after get, and all this. We will talk about conventions, language convention. Java is more strict on language conventions. In C#, you know that you can create structs, and you can create struct, and you can create class. Kotlin does not provide struct option. In C#, struct is different from class because struct is copied. It is object copied by default. But if you use class and pass it as a parameter, you will pass reference as a parameter, so you can change content of it, and this way data goes back. This is how Kotlin works, and this is how JavaScript objects work. But in C#, you can create object which is passed as value, so it is always copied as a parameter. Content is copied. Such thing is not available in Kotlin and is not available in JavaScript, and is not available in Java. So all objects are passed by reference. In C#, even if you create int, it is not primitive type. It's not just number. It's an object. So if you declare variable int a, and after this you use a dot, you can actually call the method of this a, although it is int. Because in C#, such values as int, double, they're all objects. Unlike in Java. In Java, you can have two options. Int in small and integer starting with capital. Or double starting with small, or double starting with capital. Those things are just numbers. You cannot call methods on them. Because it's a number, it's not an object. But if it starts with capitals, they are objects. So they do have methods in it. So, yeah. And this is how designers decided. And it is different from C#, obviously. In C#, you can pass, you can have specifications as ref and out next to parameters of functions or methods. These things are not available in Java. In C#, you can also split one class between several files. You cannot do it in Java. Class must be inside of just one file. You cannot have partial classes, partial types. There is no delegates. There are delegates in Kotlin, but they're working differently than C# anyway. We didn't use delegates much. We just referred to them. Remember that was when we use it view models, it was as view model. So that feature as, it's actually we're using delegate from a library. We didn't create delegate in Kotlin because in our Kotlin course because we didn't need them, but we could. And in C# you use delegates for GUI features, but probably you didn't create them yourself. You just use from libraries. But this feature is not available in Java. So what it is used instead is anonymous classes, inner classes, or lambda expressions. You're familiar with anonymous classes from C# course and even from Kotlin. At some point we used anonymous class when we implemented interface like in place. It wasn't interface, it was abstract method. Abstract implementation of abstract class rate in place. Inner class works differently from Kotlin. When we're going to use it, I will emphasize it. It's not exactly the same. Lambda expression idea is close to what we had in Kotlin. Although you cannot have such a lot of shortcuts used in Kotlin. We didn't have virtual keyword in Kotlin, right? No, I don't remember that we had. Well, we don't. But when you use C#, sometimes you use virtual. This method makes sense, makes difference in C# if you call a method using reference to parent class. So it will change behavior of which method is called. It is used explicitly in polymorphism, design pattern, polymorphism. Virtual keyword is not used in Kotlin and in Java, because all methods are virtual, unless they're static. Statics are not virtual. So just because in Java and in Kotlin all methods are virtual unless they're static, virtual keyword is not used. But when you write C# course, you will see virtual. You have to type virtual a lot, right? So inner classes are in Java are different from nested classes in C#. And they're also different from inner classes in Kotlin. So it's not exactly the same, but the idea is quite close. So some exceptions. Oh no, okay. It is the same, except in Java we don't use inner. Because it is inner by default. But in Kotlin, we have to type inner. So this is a difference. So it is the same, but you have to be specific. This is really a nasty feature of Java. And it is, I would say it is not feature, it is misfeature of Java. Somehow, designers of this language decided that some exceptions really must be caught, and if you don't catch it explicitly, the code does not compile. And they call it checked exceptions. So the other languages later programmers realized that checked exceptions, like those exceptions that have to be caught explicitly, it provides more inconvenience than convenience. So other languages like Kotlin, they just removed this misfeature. And you will see that in the code, it's actually a nasty misfeature of the language. You have to type a lot of catch and try and catch, even if they are not really necessary. But it is the way how it is done. So this feature of the language, like checked exceptions, is arguably misfeature. And just because it is misfeature, other languages are just removed this strange idea. So this is overview of Java language in terms of features. But actual code, I will postpone actual code till next lesson. Again, it is very close to C#, but since it's not exactly the same language, we cannot assume that the code that we type it will compile, because it's different language. If you compare this to Kotlin, semicolons are mandatory. So you have to put semicolon at the end of every line. Not every line, at the end of every statement. In Kotlin, we omit semicolon if we go to next line. We need to put semicolon only if you have two separate statements in the same line, which is not a good idea because it's kind of creating clutter. But in Java, semicolons cannot be omitted in the end of line. So this is a little bit misfeature. So Kotlin, in this sense, like JavaScript, where you can you don't have to write semicolons in the end of line, in the end of statements, if it is ending with line. But in Java, it is required. It is like in C#, right? In C#, it's also forcing you. Am I right? I think it is, right? See, does C# is forcing you semicolon? I think you do. It does. So in this sense, Java semicolon is the same as C and C++ semicolon. Exactly the same rule. Okay. Java semicolon rule for C++ and C the same, and Java exactly the same. This is it. It's about overview of features or misfeatures of Java. About naming conventions. Java has some naming conventions, and it's better to follow it. There are two reasons for following it. One, it is there are more than one reasons. There are more than two reasons. There is one specific reason that if we use templates, and we're going to use templates, if you don't follow Java conventions for getters and setters, the code will not compile, or they will not work. And we're going to use templates. So besides by just writing code which is easier to understood by other people, because you follow conventions, in specific cases, for example, you use templates, code will not work if you do not follow a naming convention for setters and getters. So let's talk about naming conventions. So it's a commonly used standard. It's not really forcing you, but it is kind of common. This came from Google standard. So why it's important? It's important to follow naming convention because not following convention, it's a message that you're not experiencing this programming area. Because everyone is following Java naming conventions if they write, if we write code in Java, we follow it. And if person is not following it, it's a strong message that the person didn't have much experience in Java. Unlike in some languages in Java, it is really strictly enforced. Like if you are not doing it, you're kind of bad programmer. So sticking to these naming conventions help other programmers to understand quicker and better your code. So not following naming conventions may be taken as kind of disrespect to others who read your code, because following naming convention helps others to understand it quicker, but if you don't, you kind of disregarding them. So it is maybe taken as respect of bad manners. So for this reason, if you're ignoring it, like not accidentally mistype it in one place, but it's in all around, kind of more than twice, I will reduce your mark. Luckily for us, naming conventions are not very difficult to learn. They are very similar and it's simple. It is similar to C#, except naming of methods. So class name and interface names start with capital, and after this go capital, camel case, like in C#. Our class names are typically nouns or noun phrases, like in C# the same. Character or immutable list, noun phrase. Interface names. Interface names may be noun or noun phrases, like noun, it's a list. No, not noun, noun phrase could be also kind of immutable list. And interface could sometimes be adjectives, like readable, writable kind of thing. Again, this is very close to what Microsoft does for C#. I didn't see any difference. But for method names in C#, you can see quite often methods start with capital. I think they use it for capital methods. Unlike in Java. So in this case, Java naming convention for methods, the same as we did in Kotlin. And it's definitely this for compatibility, because Kotlin code compiles into bytecode and Java code compiles into the same bytecode. So for compatibility, it is the same naming. So variable and method names must start with lower, unlike in C#, starts with small letter, and after this go camel case. The same as we did in Kotlin, exactly. Variable names are typically nouns or noun phrases, like box widths. No underscores, you see, no underscores. Methods, typically verbs or verb phrases like stop or send message. But if we do unit tests, there is no naming convention for unit tests. So specifically exclusion, there is no naming convention when we do a unit testing, and it could be just camel case or could be with underscore when we have what we're testing and for condition what we're testing. Like we are popping stack when it is empty. So we create a method pop empty stack. So again, for unit testing, it could be underscore because it's kind of connection of two different things, like pop empty stack method. That particular method will check what happens when we pop empty stack. It will throw exception or provides null point or whatever it is, but depending on implementation. And this is also similar to Kotlin. Names of constants. So constant, it is something static, final, and immutable. It is used as words in capital, connected with underscore. We had it in Kotlin all around, in my examples at least. So for example, static final int, this number 5. By the way, as you see, order is similar to C# order, right? Not Kotlin order. In Kotlin, it would be type after number, right? Column some int, right? In Kotlin. But in Java, it is like C# ordering. Type is before variable name. When there is some structure, data structure that is immutable by definition because it doesn't provide update methods, we use capitals. But if it is not constant variable, because you can assign another string, string is immutable, but you can assign, but variable is not. You can assign something else to this. So this is why it's not. It is not in capitals, it is camel case. Okay. And in this case, it is not static, but final, but constant is considered to be static and final. So this is, again, it's camel case. And array, static final string. Why it is camel case but not capitals? Because it's mutable. No, it's what it is. Why it's not? It is mutable. You can change content of this array because this variable is not changeable. You cannot assign something else because it is final. But you can reassign these pieces because this is mutable. The constant by definition must be immutable. So this is about naming conventions. If you want to learn more about Java coding style convention, it all came from here. Google Java style guide. It's not hard to learn, and a lot of it is just immediately obvious, except for constants. But for constants, where I'm not going to use these kind of strange things like array, immutable, static combination. So for most cases, it's immediately obvious, except for constants. But for constants, it's also obvious if it is static final. Any questions? No? So for today, theory is done. Java language itself is practicing in the language, and examples written in the language will be in the next lesson, not in this lesson, because you need to finish installation before we open any project and learn from it, or create project and type something in it. For this reason, I'm wrapping up. I give you 1 hour till the end to finish installation, and I will create chat room here. So if anything goes wrong, I will be available in this chat room till 4 o'clock. Now you have 1 hour till to finish all installations. I'm going now. I'm checking chat room, no messages there. So I'm opening these current questions, and I will keep it open till 4 o'clock, and I'll be next to my computer. So if you have any questions, issues, concerns, type your question here, send, and I will reply. So I will stop recording, and I will close virtual classroom, but I will be available in current questions chat room till 4 o'clock. All right? So please finish installation by the next lesson so we can do something productive, like typing code, playing with already created projects, and so on. All right? Okay. So, see you.